Roughly 1 in 10 people who take a high-dose psychedelic report a permanent shift in what they believe is possible for their life, and a smaller, quieter number report the opposite, a destabilization so deep it takes months to recover from. This is the part of the manifestation conversation almost nobody is honest about, because the line between breakthrough and breakdown is thinner than any guru selling ceremony tickets wants you to know. Psychedelics have been used in spiritual practice for thousands of years. Psilocybin mushrooms in Mesoamerica, ayahuasca in the Amazon basin, peyote across North American indigenous traditions. These were never party drugs. They were technologies for altering perception, administered by experienced practitioners within strict ceremonial containers. The dosing was controlled, the setting was sacred. The integration period afterward was built into the culture itself. That context matters enormously. Strip it away, and you're left with a powerful compound and zero infrastructure for processing what it shows you. So what does any of this have to do with manifestation? The connection runs deeper than you'd expect. Clinical research from Johns Hopkins and Imperial College London has shown that psilocybin can produce what researchers call mystical-type experiences. States characterized by a sense of unity, sacredness, and the feeling that what you're perceiving is more real than ordinary reality. Participants frequently describe the dissolution of boundaries between self and world. The sensation that intention and reality are woven from the same fabric. That sensation is the core claim of manifestation philosophy. That your internal state shapes your external circumstances. And under the influence of a psychedelic, that claim stops feeling philosophical. It feels visceral, obvious, like remembering something you always knew. The question is what happens when the trip ends. For some people, the experience creates lasting change. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology tracked participants 6 months after a guided psilocybin session. A significant portion reported sustained increases in openness, a personality trait linked to creativity, flexibility, and willingness to try new approaches. They described feeling less stuck, more capable of imagining different futures for themselves. Several spontaneously used language that mirrors manifestation practice. Phrases like, "I started seeing opportunities I'd been blind to," and "my relationship to what I thought was possible completely changed." This tracks with what neuroscience is uncovering about default mode network suppression. The default mode network is the brain system most active when you're running on autopilot, replaying old narratives, reinforcing your existing self-concept, keeping you locked into familiar patterns of thought. Psychedelics temporarily quiet that system. The volume on your habitual story drops, and for a few hours you can hear something else, a different version of yourself, a wider field of possibility. When people in the manifestation space talk about raising your vibration or shifting your frequency, this is the closest neuroscience gets to a mechanism that matches the language. The brain's pattern recognition machinery loosens its grip. Rigid beliefs about who you are and what you deserve become temporarily negotiating. And some people renegotiate permanently. They come back from the experience with a genuine shift in self-concept. They act differently. They make decisions they've been avoiding. They leave jobs, start projects, end relationships that were holding them in place. The psychedelic experience gave them a window, and they climbed through it. But climbing through a window and landing safely are two different things. The risk conversation in manifestation communities around psychedelics is dangerously shallow. You'll hear about bad trips as though they're just unpleasant experiences you push through. The reality is more serious. Psychedelics can trigger prolonged depersonalization, a state where you feel disconnected from your own body and identity for weeks or months after the substance has left your system. They can surface traumatic memories with no warning and no therapeutic support in place to process them. In people with a predisposition to psychotic disorders, a single high-dose session can accelerate onset by years. A manifestation retreat in Costa Rica with a shaman you found on Instagram is a different universe from a clinical trial at Johns Hopkins with screened participants, trained therapists, and months of follow-up care. The compound might be identical, everything else is different. There's a specific trap that manifestation culture sets here, and it deserves direct examination. The philosophy teaches that your beliefs create your reality. So when someone has a difficult psychedelic experience, paranoia, ego dissolution that feels like dying, visions that terrify rather than inspire, The community often frames it as resistance. Your ego fighting the transformation, a sign you need to go deeper, take a higher dose, surrender more completely. That framing can be genuinely dangerous. It reinterprets warning signs as spiritual progress. Someone experiencing the early symptoms of a psychiatric crisis gets told they're on the verge of a breakthrough. The language of manifestation, trust the process, what you resist persists, lean into discomfort, becomes a mechanism that prevents people from seeking the medical help they actually need. This is where intellectual honesty matters more than ideology. Psychedelics are powerful tools. The clinical evidence for their therapeutic potential is real and growing. Psilocybin-assisted therapy has shown results for treatment-resistant depression that conventional medications couldn't touch. MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD has moved through phase 3 clinical trials. The science is legitimate. The science also shows that set and setting, your mental state going in and the environment you're in, are the two strongest predictors of outcome. A controlled clinical environment with professional support produces dramatically different results than a ceremony run by someone with a website and a PayPal link. The compound opens a door. What's on the other side depends almost entirely on what you brought with you and who's guiding the process. So where does this leave someone genuinely interested in using psychedelics as part of their personal transformation? The honest answer involves holding two things at once. The experiences can be genuinely catalytic. People do have breakthroughs that reshape their relationship to possibility, motivation, and self-belief. The research supports this. The thousands of years of indigenous ceremonial use support this. The clinical data emerging from universities worldwide supports this. And the experiences carry real risk that scales with recklessness. Every shortcut in preparation, skipping medical screening, choosing an unvetted facilitator, ignoring family psychiatric history, combining substances dosing too high too fast, multiplies the probability of an outcome that sets you back rather than propelling you forward. The people who benefit most from psychedelic experiences tend to be the ones who approach them with the most caution. They research, they screen, they prepare, they have integration support lined up before they ever take the dose. The manifestation framework adds a specific layer of risk because it can make caution feel like a lack of faith. If you truly believe, why would you need a medical screening? If you trust the universe, why would you worry about dosage? That logic sounds clean in a podcast. It falls apart in an emergency room. The most useful frame might be this: psychedelics can show you a door you didn't know existed. They can give you a visceral, felt sense of a reality where your limitations are negotiable and your potential extends further than your daily experience suggests. That glimpse can be transformative, but the glimpse alone changes nothing. Walking through the door requires the same unglamorous work that every genuine transformation requires. Daily practice, honest self-examination, behavioral change sustained over months and years. A 4-hour psilocybin experience might reveal that you've been living inside a story that was written for you by your circumstances. That revelation has value. The years of rewriting that story, sentence by sentence, through action and repetition and discomfort, that's where the actual manifestation happens. The psychedelic was the telescope. Building the life you saw through it still requires your hands. Critics of psychedelic use in spiritual practice raise a fair point. The experience can become a substitute for the work. People chase the next ceremony, the next dose, the next peak experience because the mountaintop feels better than the valley where the actual building happens. Each trip confirms the vision. Each Monday morning reminds them how far the vision is from their current reality. The gap between psychedelic insight and lived change becomes its own kind of suffering, knowing what's possible while doing nothing to close the distance. The indigenous traditions that use these substances understood something modern retreat culture often ignores. The ceremony was a single node in a web of community, mentorship, daily practice, and cultural accountability. The medicine opened a conversation. The life you lived between ceremonies was your answer. Nobody confused the vision with the work. The vision served the work, always in that order. Your nervous system can be shown a wider world in 4 hours. Becoming the person who actually lives in that wider world takes everything you've got, stone sober, on an ordinary Tuesday when nobody's watching and the incense has burned out.